What are the consequences of when something is removed? Well, very often you don't see the short term. In the short term, not maybe too much stuff, but again, it depends what you're removing, of course. If you're looking at laws, like we hear a lot about, oh, we want to pull Britain out of the European Court of Human Rights, or we want to remove like the human rights, legislation. Well, that is a foundational block of this country where hundreds of thousands of legal cases and rules off that have been built upon that foundation. And if you remove that foundation, what then happens to all the rest of that stuff? You never hear the answers to this. Why? Because this is a very simplistic solution offered to a really complex problem. And when it comes to stuff like flooding, we are going to be seeing that. We are going to be seeing long-term consequences for these reform councils removing flood defense committees, or committees that are solely looking at the problem of flooding, especially in places like Leicestershire, where they have had increased year on year problems with flooding, especially when you've got someone on that committee who is a complete climate change denier, bear in mind, running your transport now. So yeah, good luck for that, Leicestershire. But the BBC went and asked a very simple question. Will actually anyone miss the Flood Defence Committee? And what are, the outcomes for removing, such a flood defence committee? If you're in Leicestershire, maybe you want to pay attention, not just in Leicestershire, but any of these reform councils where you had a flood defence committee and they've just now gone, it's gone. When flooding starts, I can guarantee you, they ain't going to blame themselves. They're going to blame everyone else bar themselves for this. Because when you have committees like this that look at why flooding happened, what the response was, were there any things that happened differently that maybe they weren't expecting last time? Full committees dedicated to this type of stuff are needed and are required. And the fact that they cannot see this is shocking. It is a dereliction of duty. It is incompetence. And those areas that experience large volume amounts of flooding, like Leicestershire, they're going to get the consequences of that now. So on to this. But before we do that, please remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Of course, there's the Buy Me Coffee link. There's the YouTube thank you button. There's the Patreon page. There's the YouTube subscription button down below as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help support the channel that way. And of course, as always, you can always click the like and share button. So let's crack on then into this from the BBC. Will anyone miss a council flood committee? Well, will anyone miss these things? Oh boy, are they going to. So, on its first day in charge of Lincolnshire County Council, Reform UK abolished one of the authority's most important and powerful committees. Again, BBC pointing out that this is really important and is very powerful in this, and yet gone. The Flood and Water Management Scrutiny Committee oversaw nearly every single aspect of flood defence in the county that has been devastated by flooding in recent years. Despite now cross-party pleas to save it, Reform UK's new council leader, Sean Matthews, said he wanted to, quote, save money and streamline the authority. This does not streamline it. This makes it worse. We've discussed this before when we were talking about this, and this initially got reported. Putting it back onto the environmental committee, where the environmental group will be discussing a whole range of issues, it's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. But will scrapping the committee, they continue, make any difference and to the experiences of those lives who live now with the threat of flooding? So how much of course a problem is flooding in Lincolnshire? So forget politics for a second. Let's just start with geography. And when it comes to flooding, Lincolnshire is one of the most vulnerable places in Britain. It is low-lying terrain and region now crisscrossed by complexity now of rivers and drains. The country also has more than 50 miles of coastline. Nearly all of this needs defending now from the North Sea. every single drop of rain that falls in Lincolnshire must be managed. This means either pumping it out into the sea via river or drainage network, or diverting to water and storing it. And as the flood risks are now far from being theoretical in recent years, Lincolnshire has therefore been battered by a succession of powerful weather systems, most notably Storm Barret and Storm Henk between October of 2023 and February of 2024, when over 900 homes were flooded and 13 river defences were seriously damaged. And according to the Met Office, this is the part of the country with record that is now recorded the wettest ever winter on record, experiencing months rain in just a month's rain in just a one single 24-hour period. So, given the facts, just geography alone, why are you getting rid of such an important committee when that is just the reality? It doesn't make a single bit of sense to be getting rid of this committee. And oh boy, are they going to regret probably getting rid of this committee. You wouldn't be surprised if you probably see them bring this committee back when they realize how bad that was. So what did, of course, the committee actually do? So no one ever lost sleep over the scrapping of a council committee, right? Well, drive through, of course, this watery landscape on a rainy November morning, and you might, of course, see their point. The Conservative councillor Ian Carrington, who sat on the committee, said that it was very unfortunate that he had been scrapped. The committee did not, of course, listen and scrutinised. It took steps to improving the protection of the people that Lincolnshire enjoy from the scourge of flooding. Defending Lincolnshire from flooding involves a number of different public bodies, as well as specialist officers from the council. These include the Environment Agency, which plays a leading role in protecting people and property. There is also at least 15 different internal drainage boards, or IDBs. These IDBs now have a lot of specialist local knowledge, and they operate hundreds of pumping stations, sluices, and floodgates. They are moving now, lots of moving parts in, of course, in a flood defense plan. The Flood and Water Management Scrutiny Committee was, of course, there to try make them all work together. It made recommendations, including calls now for more government money, and it will hold to account a myriad of different private and public bodies. So after hearing that, why on earth would you get rid of that committee? Given what it does there, what its responsibilities does, brings all those different groups together, gets them to work together, holds them to account, especially private bodies, which is very good. Why on earth would you get rid of such an important committee? Now, the Reform response is, oh, we haven't got rid of it. It's just been moved into the environmental stuff. Well, you had a specific committee that would discuss that. You've now moved it under another committee that has a whole different range of other things that it has to discuss, that it needs to do. How much time is going to get, committed to flooding? I don't think not a lot, to be honest. So, why was it axed? So, the Flood and Water the Scrutiny Committee met over 4 times a year. It involved at least 18 different councillors and dozens other specialists. These were drawn, of course, from the council itself, from the IDBs, the Environment Agency, private companies such as Anglican Water. The Conservative councillor Ian Carrington said this represents the recent experiences now of big storms in Lincolnshire demonstrated now the need for the committee. When you have been through all these appalling experiences, and many of our local residents have been through, any dilution of our ability to be able to improve the situation has to be very deeply worrying, he said. But Reform UK scrapped the committee on its very first day in charge of Lincolnshire County Council. The new administration said that it would now change would save money and simplify the council. Basically, it means they didn't want to do these meetings, I think, at the end of the day. Reform UK council leader Sean Matthews said that the flooding will now sit within the Environmental Committee, which already deals with issues such as waste and pollution. Again, deals with all that, whole range of the matters. Just bring it under that umbrella is not good enough, because you need all that stuff. And not only that, all those private groups not instantly going to get invited to this committee, which they already previously were. Moving this away does no one any favors. So, what's his reasoning for getting rid of this? So, Mr. Matthews said, "I want there to be more meetings about flooding in the county, and by moving it under the umbrella of the environment, we get to talk about it more." He said, "Why not then improve the number of times it met a year? Maybe go from 4. I don't know." Put 2 extra meetings on a year, 3 extra meetings, because that's all it would talk about: flooding, flood defense, how they can prepare. Environment Committee or the Environment Group won't be just doing that. They'll be talking about a whole other range of things, as well as flooding. Are they really going to have to be able to? Are really going to be able to spend the time that flooding maybe needs or maybe deserves? No. That's why there was a separate committee, because as you've just seen, geography alone shows just how much it really needs that type of committee. Anyway, he continued saying, we will, of course, work longer and harder on flooding than ever before. Again, it doesn't look like it. He said the Labour group leader, Councillor Karen Lee, described the change as reckless, foolhardy, and wrong. And again, when you have, and I want to point this out because it keeps on being brought up, every single other opposition party, even the independents, tried to save this committee. Like, they all realised how important this was, and they all agreed we need to try and save this committee. But Reform got rid of it. And it is incredibly rare in local politics where almost every single opposition group agrees, even independents. This goes to show you the impact and the importance that this committee really had. Now it's gone. So this is the big question. What will the impact be? So as climate changes, as rain events become now more frequent and even more severe, it will be very clear that properties in Lincolnshire are now going to be under increasing threat. The immediate response now to flooding incidents are unlikely to, of course, change in the short term. There are, of course, well-rehearsed protocols between the council, fire services, and the police, seasoned professionals who work very hard to mitigate the worst of this nature that throws at us. But, and this is where it comes in, but the longer-term strategies of defense, response, and recovery will also need to function efficiently. What we learn from flood events, who we hold accountable, and where we spend the money to improve protection for these communities. All of this now against a backdrop now of tightening budgets. So all of that would be discussed by one committee. Now it's going to be put under environment. And as I said before, you really think they're going to have that amount of time to discuss all that? I don't think they will. I don't think they will. And I can guarantee you, this autumn, we will see this, and we will see what their end up response being is from Reform. Maybe they'll learn a lesson about why these committees are important. But the fact they're going to be working longer and harder on flooding, why get rid of the Flood Defence Committee then? Why not instead increase the amount of times the committee meets a year? Makes no sense. They've got zero clue about what they're doing. So, and this even gets even more because even the government's own environmental secretary, Emma Hardy, described the state of the UK's flooding defences as now being, of course, the worst state on record. Despite, of course, resounding criticism from its political rivals, Reform UK is currently arguing that its, quote, simplified approach would be better and serve the thousands now of vulnerable residents, some who look very nervously to the skies every time the clouds darken. All I'm going to say is they ain't going to be helping you. They ain't going to be helping you by this simplified approach. Because these free market fundamentalists, as soon as they see a committee, they're like, oh, why do we need it? Doesn't matter what the committee is discussing. Their approach to it, and I guarantee you this is what happened. They looked at it and went, why is this committee not under environment? Doesn't matter, under it goes. Don't even care about what was discussed in it, what it did, the problems of it. No, under it goes. So there will be problems now. um, there, flooding will not get the attention I think it deserves, especially in this area. And the people of Lincolnshire, you should remember this the next time this happens, next time it floods. Why are you not dedicating a specific committee to this one? Because previously we had one. There was mass cross-party support for this. Apparently not from Reform, because I don't think they wanted to spend that extra time meeting on a committee. They just wanted to simplify it. This is not simplifying an approach at all. So, Councillor, of course, Sean Matthews denied that he was now watering down the council's role, saying absolutely not. We were elected now on a mandate of reducing waste and simplifying the council. This decision will do that. Yeah. Just removing one of the most important roles that a council has in defending in flood defense in an area that really needs this protection, this type of scrutiny, holding these drainage boards to account, because that's what that committee did. The Environment Committee, not so much. This is going to end up being a disaster. I can guarantee you now. And when flooding starts to happen, which, as we've seen, inevitably it will, I can't wait to see their excuses. I cannot wait to see their excuses. Of course, it will be really bad for all the residents in Leicestershire. And I've said this last time, start your own, preparations. Go buy your own sandbags. Wellies, waders. Make sure you can, try and flood-proof your house as much as you can, but Reform UK just do not care about flooding. Despite what they said, that they're going to work longer and harder. Why did you get rid of this committee then? The most sensible option would have been just increase the amount of time this committee meets. Not just fold away the committee onto another department, because it is not going to get the time it needs to be discussed. And it is just a disaster waiting to happen. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.